Dan, you got to visit Adley Rutschman and talk with his coaches, his peers, his teammates. What stood out to you the most about who he is and what he could offer in this #1 pick?
I think he's a franchise player. And the question is, will the Orioles choose him? And what do they need to do to decide him, a catcher from college, versus Bobby Witt Jr., who is a high school shortstop? And those are the two positions that you want. And these are the two positions that are available. These top two guys, also Andrew Vaughn, University of California first baseman, great hitter. But these other two guys have it all. And I think that that's one of the interesting things that I saw in my time in Oregon was this kid is as Americana as you get. You know, his pitching coach joked that he's a gallon of milk, he's a bale of hay. His high school counselor said that he was practically perfect in every way. His teammates love him. He's a leader. And so I think they can't go wrong with him. They probably can't go wrong with Bobby Witt Jr. Had an opportunity to talk to him as well. And he's a great kid. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do.
The Orioles have not had that #1 pick since Ben McDonald. You know Elias is familiar with this as he took Correa and he had it 3 years in a row. What do you think? You talked to Mike Elias a lot about it. What is he looking for? A more major league player like Rutschman or a guy like Bobby Witt that has a huge upside that's a shortstop, but he's in high school?
He doesn't want to mess it up. That's the #1 thing. He does not want to mess this up. He understands how important it is. In 2012, he took Carlos Correa, and that was a bit of a risk at the time. He was a high school shortstop out of Puerto Rico, and they decided to take him instead of Byron Buxton and some other guys, and they actually saved money on Correa and used that money later on in the draft and on a guy like Lance McCullers, and also on Rio Ruiz, who's now at the Orioles. So that's a possibility. But I think that Mike has told me and has said several times he wants to make sure that they get the most out of these picks. And whether that's an absolute top #1, like Rutschman, like Witt, or maybe it's somebody else like an Abrams, C.J. Abrams, who's a high school player, and then be able to use that money elsewhere. They're going to try to get the most talent possible. And that probably starts with one of the two best players in the game.
Now, you know they're not going to draft for a need by any means or in a rebuild, but you said Adley Rutschman, when you look at his numbers, he's gotten better from last year. What stands out to you? Why is he this franchise player? What makes him so good, Dan?
He's a really hard worker. He's incredible. I mean, he's buff. He's like, you know, he's all about working out, all about studying the game. His father is a catching coach, catching instructor at college. So he's grown up around the game. His grandfather is a college Hall of Famer. I mean, there's so many things about this kid that's impressive, and he just works his tail off. And, you know, last year, Oregon State had won a national championship and had 3 guys drafted in the first round, including Caden Grenier, you know, the Orioles drafted. And so there's not the lineup wasn't as good, and this guy's gotten better. His numbers are better without that kind of protection. He just is working his butt off, and he's got power. He's got everything.
In your opinion, is there a scenario where Elias, as you talked about before, takes maybe a Witt Jr. or someone else for less money, and then, of course, tries to sign other players that slip through the cracks a little bit for less money?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a possibility. It's got to be on the table. Now, Witt Jr. maybe not, because he's also going to demand. A lot of people think he could be the first overall pick. But somebody else in that top 5 or top 6, absolutely. So that's the scenario he's got to look at. I mean, personally, I think that it's either Witt or Rutschman because you know that those two guys are really, like, top-of-the-line players. But it could be somebody else. If they think that there's somebody just as good as them that would cost them a little bit less money, they could do it. They have $8.4 million to spend on that slot and $13.8 million total on the 10 rounds. So they could possibly do that.
Dan, great piece on Adley Rutschman. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Sarah.